الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. أما بعد, closing the discussion with regards to the tarjama of Al-Hafidh Al-Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala, we've seen at the end of his life that he had written a work clarifying his position with regards to the creed, and specifically the creed of At-Tawheed, and the proper belief and understanding with regards to the beautiful names and the lofty attributes of perfection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to affirm them in a manner befitting the majesty of Allah Azza wa Jal, without interpreting them or changing the meanings or distorting them or denying them in any manner whatsoever, rather to affirm them in the manner that they have come, and to believe in them and to believe in those meanings in the apparent understanding. And as for how the reality of that is, and this part is entrusted to Allah, to believe in the meaning in its apparent understanding. And as for the kayfiyah and how that is in the reality of that with regards to Allah Azza wa Jal, then that is entrusted to Allah Azza wa Jal, and He knows best about that affair, subhanahu wa ta'ala. But that the fact that he had fallen into these errors, along with the great benefit that he was upon, and the clarification and the aid that he has given to the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But in the end of his life, he was given success to repent likewise from that as well. And this is a great benefit, and something that a believer, he will rejoice over whenever he read the likes of these affairs, and find that the ulama, they have found the likes of these works clarifying this, and that one of the believers, they had repented from a mistake or an error, even greater, the people of knowledge. The point to learn now, and that we close with, is that no matter how great a person's status he may reach in this life, in knowledge and in worship and piety and in truthfulness, he has deficiencies and shortcomings. And no one is ma'soom. No one is safe from error. No one is ever safe from error. And rather, as we have seen from that beneficial statement of Al-Muallimi rahimahullah, that even sometimes maybe Allah, He will cause somebody who is sincere and truthful in their search for knowledge, and their application of knowledge, to fall into particular errors and mistakes, to test others. Will they blind follow them after seeing the evidence and proof? Will they establish the shahada and the Muhammadan Rasulullah? لَا مَتْبُعَ حَقٌّ إِلَّا رَسُولُ اللَّهِ sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. No one has that right to be followed absolutely, except for the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, where they follow their customs and the ways of their people, and be afraid of being blamed, and continue following their particular imam, or the one that they venerate, and the one that they honor, and the one that they respect. So this is something that is known, and we see it in this manner like this. And likewise, as for those who make mistakes, those who are sincere and truthful, then either they or those who strive from the people of knowledge to obtain rulings and to clarify that, if they reach the truth, then they have two rewards. And if they err in that, because they were not seeking error, or they're not looking for misguidance, rather they're striving to obtain the truth, they will still have one reward for their effort, and their mistake will be forgiven. But as for those who come later, and they see that that is mistake, and that is contrary to that which is clarified in the Quran or in the Sunnah, they will not be excused. They will not be excused. And likewise, anytime a person, he sees that a particular individual, a scholar, or the likes like this, has made a declaration about something or someone, or ruling and the likes like this, and then a person, he sees that that is wrong and not according to reality, and the truth is not that way, that he will not be deceived by that, and he will not be tricked like that, and he will follow that which he knows from the truth. And if it's a person from the Sunnah, a scholar of the Sunnah, then he'll make an excuse for him, and he'll know his status and know his honor, but he will not follow him in that particular error and that particular mistake, and that particular error and that particular mistake. And we see likewise that sometimes some people, they can come to individuals, and some of them are good at that, and they will make the truth, they will make the falsehood seem appealing, and they will decorate that, and they will be liars, and they will be deceptive, and they will get their point across in a manner that somebody will believe them, and they're not right, and they're not correct. And this is the case with regards to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is what he said, that maybe one of you will come and he's more fluent and eloquent than the other, and I will judge according to what I hear. So if that's the case with the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then how about those after? No doubt Allah Azza wa Jal, He revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and guide him if he ever made the wrong judgment and the likes like this. But in any case, the point from this is that the judgment is based upon what is apparent. And likewise, that sometimes people can mislead individuals until they will rule for them and judge for them, or till they will rule against a person and judge against them, and in this manner like this. And this is something that we should be aware of, especially in these days. Likewise, it has been collected by Al-Bukhari from the hadith of Abi Sa'id radiallahu anhu. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, ما بعث الله من نبي ولا استخلف من خليفة إلا كانت له بطانتان. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He never sent a prophet, nor did He leave, nor did He set a khalifa in charge of the affairs, except that He gave him bitanatan. Bitana is a name for the person's entourage and those who are closest to him. And a person's bitana, he's the one that he relies upon and he gets advice and he gets consultation from. Those people who are closest to an individual, that he will get advice from and he will get consultation from, and the likes like this. This is called bitana. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, there's no prophet that is sent, nor any imam that's going to be the khalifa, except he will have two bitana. Except you have two bitana. بطانة تأمره بالمعروف وتحضه عليه وبطانة تأمره بالشر وتحضه عليه. That one of those inner councils will order him with good and encourage him to do that, and another inner council will order him with evil and encourage him to do that. So if this is the case with the prophets and the messengers, alayhim salatu wassalam, and then likewise the khulafa after them, that there will always be around these important individuals, two types of groups who are that are coming close to them in order to help them and to direct them and give them sincere advice for that which is best, and another group is trying to get close to them, to use them and to manipulate them and to have personal gains. If that's the case with them, then how about with the people of knowledge? And if that's the case in those days, then how about in these days? And we have seen that directly in these times, and it's a major problem. So we should not be deceived about this affair. Even as Shaykh ibn Baz, rahimahullah ta'ala, those who are aware of his fatwa, he was asked at one time, some individuals came to him from Jamaat al-Tabligh. And we all know the issue of Jamaat al-Tabligh, and that they're Sufis, and that they're grave worshippers, and the likes like this. And they call on the graves besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they have places in Hind. And their leader and the like, Muhammad Ilyas, and the likes like that. He was known for calling on the graves and the likes like this. This is what they were upon. A group of them came to Shaykh ibn Baz, rahimahullah ta'ala, and they mentioned about their jama'ah. And they talked to him about that, and they said some things until he praised them. And this is known. There's a fatwa of Shaykh ibn Baz praising Jamaat al-Tabligh. And if you ever debate with a Tablighi, especially those who speak Arabic and those who are from the Arab lands, this is what he'll say. Shaykh ibn Baz afna alayna. Zakana Shaykh ibn Baz. Shaykh ibn Baz, he gave us a recommendation. Shaykh ibn Baz, rahimahullah, he praised us. But if somebody who knows this affair clearly, he would say, هذه تزكية هذا فتواه الأولى. This is his first fatwa. He has a second fatwa after that. Whenever some brothers had come to him and clarified that those people were lying and they were not clarifying the truth properly, and meaning they had said things in order to make it seem good for him until he praised them, based upon what they told him. But whenever it was clarified to him and the brothers came to him and talked to him and showed them the reality of Jamaat al-Tabligh and the foundation of Jamaat al-Tabligh and what they're truly upon and what they're really called to all over the world, at this time the Shaykh, he changed his fatwa. Rahimahullah ta'ala. So this is something that occurs, and this is something that happens, and this is something that we witness and that we see. And many people, wallahu al-musta'an, they're using their position with the scholars to manipulate people and for personal gains. So this is something we should be aware of. And this is something that we see and benefit from the likes of reading in the biographies of the people of knowledge. The people of the Sunnah, they're not like the Sufis, and they do not believe that the scholars are infallible. And they're not like the Rafidah and the likes. The Sufis and the Rafidah, both of them, they believe that their imams are infallible. Whatever they say, you have to follow is the truth. The people of the Sunnah, they're not like that. The people of the Sunnah, they know the status and the rank of the people of knowledge, and they hold that in high regards, but they do not deem them to be infallible, that they never make a mistake, that they never fall into error. And this is something likewise that has been clarified in the narrations of hadith. We have learned yesterday that there is a great work of hadith about manners specifically, and even more specific about the manners of knowledge and its people, by a great scholar from the West. He died in the same year that a great scholar from the East died in. Who are those scholars? Al-Khatib al-Baghdadi, he died in the East, and Ibn Abdul Barr, rahimahullah, he died in the West in the same year, 463. Both of them, they both have works of hadith about this affair. Ibn Abdul Barr, rahimahullah ta'ala, he has a work called Jami' Bayan al-Ilmi wa Fadlihi, the book with regards to gathering the issues related to the clarification of the virtue of knowledge, the clarification of knowledge and its virtue. In that particular work, he mentioned a narration to Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib, rahimahullah ta'ala. He died in the year 95. He's from the Fuqaha Sab'a, from the Tabi'een. Rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, ليس من عالم ولا شريفا ولا ذي فضل إلا وفيه عيب ولكن من الناس من لا ينبغي أن تذكر عيوبه ومن كان فضله أكثر من نقصه ذهب فضله لنقصه. Sa'id ibn Musayyib rahimahullah ta'ala, from the great Tabi'een, rather from the Fuqaha Sab'a, from those 7 Fuqaha who were alive at one time in Al-Madinah, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said there's no scholar and there's no person of virtue and nobility except he has shortcomings and faults. But from mankind there are those individuals that it's not proper to mention their faults. I mean, it's not proper to follow them up and spread them and to expose them and to display them. From mankind, there are those who it's not proper to do that. He says, وَمَنْ كَانَ فَضْلُهُ أَكْثَرَ مِنْ نَقْصِهِ ذَهَبَ نَقْصُهُ لِفَضْلِهِ. And the one who his virtue was greater than his weakness or deficiency, then his deficiency or shortcomings will be drowned out in his virtue. وَمَنْ كَانَ نَقْصُهُ أَكْثَرَ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ فَذَهَبَ فَضْلُهُ لِنَقْصِهِ. هكذا he said. فَذَهَبَ فَضْلُهُ لِنَقْصِهِ. And the one who his deficiency and his shortcomings and his mistakes and errors are greater than his virtues and his benefits, then his benefits and his virtues will be drowned out in his mistakes and his errors. Any contrary to that. So the point is that the people of knowledge in general, the people of knowledge of the Sunnah, the scholars of the Sunnah, the majority of the time they are correct and upright in their judgments. And their judgments in the ruling, in the halal and the haram, and their clarification of the creed and the aqidah, and their clarification of the men and the likes like this, and the circumstances and situations that befall the ummah, and the nawazil, and these trials and the likes like this, the majority of the time they're right, but not every time. The majority of the time, the people of knowledge, they achieve the truth. And this is a favor from Allah Azza wa Jal, but not every time. And the people of the Sunnah, they do not believe that every time. So whenever that time comes, whenever they did not achieve the truth, a person, he will not be deceived by that. If he sees the truth is contrary to that statement, no matter how much he loves that scholar, he loves the truth more. And he loves Allah more. And he loves the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam more. So it's a test and a trial. Will he follow the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam in the truth that he knows, or will he follow the scholar that he loves? Those who follow the scholars that they love in opposition to the truth that they see, they're like the Sufis and the Rafidah. This is what the Sufis and the Rafidah do. They blind follow the scholars even though they know that the truth is contrary. They blind follow the scholars even though they know that the truth is contrary. This is not allowed. So to be truthful in one's faith and to follow the truth even if the people go against you. So long as you see it's the truth and you know it's the truth, you have no doubts about that, you follow that. And you leave off what the people are clarifying or what the people are glorifying, what the people are saying, and the way they decorate and the likes like this. And the one who sees it is not like the one who heard about it. So if you heard about it from a trustful and reliable source, that's one thing. But if you see it, it's another thing. And now you can definitely not prefer any of the whims of the people and desires over that truth that you've seen and that you know and that you're certain about. So these are some of the benefits with regards to these affairs that we see derived from the biography of Al-Hafidh al-Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala. After that we begin the treatise. So the author, Al-Qasimi, the one who has summarized this affair, he began with the Basmalah. And he began with praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and sending the salutations on the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and his family and his companions. And then he mentioned the title, Adab wa Daris wal Mudarris. Adab, Adaris wal Mudarris. He mentioned the title. The people of knowledge, they clarify that al-adab huwa ijtima'u khisal al-khayr fi al-abd. And in general, al-adab, what does that mean? A person أن يكون مؤدبا أو متأدبا the person is a person of adib. He's somebody who the traits of goodness are found in him. All of the traits of goodness are found in him. He's considered to be upon manners and etiquettes. Likewise, Ibn Hajar, he mentioned, rahimahullah, وَالْأَدَبُ إِسْتِعْمَالُ مَا يُحْمَدُ قَوْلًا وَفِعْلًا. that al-adib, or manners, is considered, what is that? Is to use that which is praiseworthy and good in statement and in action. And so in every statement and action, to use that which is praiseworthy and good. And we have seen in the previous class that this is governed by the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that his way is the scale with regards to this. In order to take advantage of the time, we're going to skip over the introduction of the author. And I summarize what he has mentioned here. In this brief introduction, he has indicated that there are many works, past and present, that have been written with regards to the issue of manners and the manners of the people of knowledge specifically. We have seen a number of them in the previous class. And he mentioned likewise that every generation and every era, every era you will find that when you read those books in the different eras, they will discuss different manners and different etiquettes according to their needs in the time that they're living in. And some of the manners mentioned of the people of knowledge in the earlier generations will not be applied in our days because the times are different and the affairs have changed. Meaning the way that they used to gather the books, and the way that they used to make muqabala, and the way that they used to have, for example, mustamli, a person who is going to convey the narrations to those behind them because they don't have microphones, and the way that they would gather the books, or that they would attend the classes and they would take names and they would be diligent to verify chains in this manner like this. Many of these etiquettes here, they don't apply to us in these days. So the point is that he's mentioning this, that all throughout these times, although there are some etiquettes and manners that are different according to time and place and the needs of the people of that particular era, there are foundations and fundamentals that all of the manners are based upon. And this is something that every person of knowledge, he must learn, those fundamentals and those foundations, those fundamental manners and etiquettes that every student and every teacher must know and learn and abide by. And likewise, he mentioned that is by way of knowledge that the ummah will reach the high status and lofty level in this life. The way of having honor and nobility, the way for the ummah to have honor and nobility and authority and command is only by way of knowledge. And knowledge is only correct whenever the students and the scholars and teachers are upright and rectified. So if the teachers and the students, they're all corrupted, and the likes like this, then likewise the knowledge will not be beneficial. Those who carry the knowledge with a false intention, or with a foul intention, or with a bad intention, then the knowledge that they carry will be a means to harm them, and they'll bring fitna and trials wherever they go. So in order for the knowledge to truly be beneficial, the knowledge of the legislation no doubt is beneficial in itself, but when will a person benefit from that? First and foremost, the first manner and etiquette is that he rectifies his attention and he seeks the pleasure of Allah, and that he learns that knowledge in order to apply it to draw near to Allah, because he believes in Allah and the legislation of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he believes that by following that, it will take him to the pleasure of Allah. So this is the focus. He mentioned in general like this. These are some of the benefits that would be derived from what he mentioned in this introduction. Then he mentioned likewise that he chose, because of its importance and because of its great benefit, this particular work here from the work of An-Nawawi, and he summarized that and he entitled it Adab al-Daris wal Mudarris. So now we begin reading the actual treatise, and this is the portion that is what we had intended. And now the majority of the work here from this point on is from the work of An-Nawawi rahimahullah, and Al-Qasimi, he only has the efforts of summarizing. And it's mentioned that he summarized in a very beneficial manner rahimahumullah. So he says Ahkamu Dars al-Ulum al-Shar'iyyah, the rulings of the dars, the lesson of the legislative knowledge, the rulings of the lesson of the legislative knowledge. The legislative knowledge is the knowledge that is revealed to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam from the Quran and from the Sunnah, and that which the Sahaba and the Tabi'un and the Tabi'in radiyallahu anhum they were upon. This is the legislative knowledge, the knowledge that is a means to rectify the creed, and likewise to correct the actions and deeds, and to purify the souls, and to refine and to perfect the manners and the etiquettes. This is called al-ulum al-shar'iyyah, or al-ilm al-shar'i. And anytime knowledge is mentioned in the text of the Quran and the Sunnah, or in the statement of the scholars, on the tongue of the ulama, this is what is intended here. Al-ilm al-shar'i, or al-ulum al-shar'iyyah. هي العلوم التي تصلح العقائد وتصحح الأعمال وتزكي النفوس وتهذب الأخلاق والآداب. وتهذب الأخلاق والآداب. So this is what is being referred to here. So with regards to this knowledge here in the lesson, there's a ruling with regards to that knowledge. Some of that knowledge that is being taught in that lesson, that is being discussed in that lesson, some of it is obligatory and some of it is recommended. Some of it is obligatory and some of it is recommended. And the likes like this. And he's learning this knowledge, it has rulings. So the knowledge that's going to be discussed in the durus al-ilmiyyah, they have rulings. This knowledge has rulings. Some knowledge is obligatory for every one of us to learn. Other knowledge is obligatory for at least some of us to learn. And other knowledge is it's not obligatory, not for all of us, not for some of us, but it's recommended and it's highly encouraged. So this is what he's referring to here. Ahkam, durus, al-ulum, al-shar'iyyah. This is with regards to the legislative knowledge. On the other hand, there's also al-ulum al-dunyawiyah. Al-ulum al-dunyawiyah. This is the knowledge of the worldly life. Meaning this is the knowledge of the worldly affair. One, he will not study that to purify his soul. He will not study that to rectify his creed. He will not study that to check his manners and the likes like this. This is then rectifying the creed, purifying the soul, correcting the manners and also the actions and deeds and the likes like this. This is found in al-ulum al-shar'iyyah. As for al-ulum al-dunyawiyah, no, he's learning this knowledge for a worldly benefit, for a worldly gain, from wealth and prosperity, or from having peace and harmony in the society, so on and so forth. He will learn this knowledge for these reasons. But if a person were to learn the worldly knowledge with a reason to benefit Islam and to benefit the Muslims, now the learning of that knowledge can be considered an action of worship, and it can be considered from the aspect of al-ulum al-shar'iyyah. Al-ulum al-shar'iyyah, the one who learns the worldly knowledge with a beautiful intention to aid Islam and to aid the Muslims, then at this time, with this intention, this learning of this knowledge now has become from the aspect of the religion and the deen. So we'll see that there is some worldly knowledge that is obligatory for some of the Muslims to learn. So now he says, أنواع العلوم الشرعية لا تعد وفي أحكامها ثلاثة أقسام. Then the legislative sciences are various and they cannot be enumerated. And there are many of them. The different types of the Islamic sciences, there are many. وفي أحكامها ثلاثة أقسام. And in the rulings of these sciences, all of them, there are three divisions or three categories. Yani the legislative knowledge is many. You have tafsir, you have fiqh, you have hadith, you have usul al-fiqh, you have usul al-hadith, you have that which is following that. Likewise, like for example, al-Arabiyyah, Lugha Arabiyyah, Nahu, Sarf, Balagha. You have many different sciences. Usul al-tafsir. You have many different sciences in the Islamic religion. And in the Islamic legislation, and these sciences, they have rulings. And rather, they have three. They have three. So he's referring to this affair, the division of knowledge with regards to its ruling. Taqsim al-ilm min haythu hukmuhu. Taqsim al-ilm min haythu hukmuhu thalathatu aqsam. That knowledge with regards to its ruling is three types. Fard ayn, wa fard kifaya, wa nafl. Fard ayn, wa fard kifaya, wa nafl. This is with regards to knowledge. There's knowledge that's obligatory for every individual to learn. It's called fardul ayn. Fardul ayn yata'ayanu ala kulli mukallaf. It's an obligation upon everyone who reached the age of puberty to learn that knowledge and to be upon that knowledge. There's other type of knowledge. It's called fard al-kifaya. Fard al-kifaya. It's called fard al-kifaya. It's a collective obligation. Meaning, يعني إذا قام به بعض المسلمين سقط الإثم عن الباقين. That if some of the believers they establish that knowledge, then the sin will fall off the rest of them. He's going to make examples. And then there's a type of knowledge that's called nafil, أو تطوع. يعني that is not obligatory. يعني مستحب. It's something that's recommended and it's extra. And it's يعني to go deeper into knowledge, but it's not an obligation, not يعني upon an individual or upon يعني or could even not be a collective obligation. So he says now, القسم الأول فرض العين منها. The first category is the one that's obligatory, farad ayn, meaning the one that's obligatory upon everybody. The benefit from learning this, or from the benefits of learning this, is that if something is obligatory upon an individual, if he establishes it, he has a reward. And if he falls short in that, he is exposing himself to punishment and the anger of Allah. If he falls short in that, he exposes himself to punishment and the anger of Allah. So in the religion, many aspects are considered farad ayn. And aspects in the religion. We're talking about the aspect of knowledge now. We're talking about the aspect of knowledge now. You understand that this is about knowledge specifically, the types of knowledge that are obligatory upon every individual. So he says, وَيُقَالُ لَهُ الضَّرُورِ. And it is also called the necessary knowledge. the necessary knowledge. The people of knowledge mentioned that this word here is from the wording of Al-Qasimi and not from the wording of An-Nawawi rahimahullah. وَهُوَ دَرْسُ الْمُكَلَّفِ مَا تَصِحُّ بِهِ عَقِيدَتُهُ وَتُجْزِئُ مَعَهُ عِبَادَتُهُ وَتَنْفُذُ عُقُودُهُ وَمُعَامَلَاتُهُ وَمَا لَا غِنَى لَهُ عَنْهُ مِمَّا يَتَنَاوَلُهُ وَيَسْتَعْمِلُهُ. So he says that this knowledge that's considered fard ayn, obligatory upon everybody, it's also called the ad-daruri, meaning the one that's necessary. It's necessary. It's necessary. There's a dire necessity for it, meaning something that you have to have. Something that you have to have, or else you will lose. You will lose in this life and the hereafter. So he says, and this is that the mukallaf, meaning somebody who reached the age of puberty and he has sanity, he will study and he will learn in order for his creed to be correct. And likewise for his actions of worship to be considered accepted. And also for his contracts and his dealings as well to be considered correct. And the knowledge that he will always be in need of. The knowledge that he will always need from the affairs that he is going to use and that he's going to come in contact with. So this is that obligatory knowledge. So he says, وَيَدْخُلُ فِي ذَلِكَ دَرْسُ أَمْرَاضِ الْقَلْبِ كالحسد والعجب والبخل وأمثالها من المهلكات وقد قال الغزالي معرفة حدودها وأسبابها وطبها وعلاجها فرض عين. Also included in this, the obligatory knowledge is the knowledge to study the diseases of the heart from the likes of envy and self-amazement and from greed and the likes of this from those destructive sins, the destructive sins of the hearts. The destructive sins of the heart, the major sins related to the heart. He says, قال Al-Ghazali. Al-Ghazali, rahimahullah, he was also from the scholars of the Shafi'i. He died in 505. It's mentioned about him likewise that he was from those who had great errors. It's known he had great errors. وَلِيَذُ بِاللَّهِ in creed and likewise in methodology. And he was from those who highly supported the Sufi madhab. The madhab of the Sufiya, وَلِيَذُ بِاللَّهِ in creed and in belief and methodology and the likes like this, but he had some works in fiqh and in usul al-fiqh, he had the likes of this. In one of those works he mentioned here, to know the definitions and the reasons and the cure and the treatment for those sins is an obligation upon everyone, fardu ayn, and this is the shahid from that. It's mentioned likewise about Al-Ghazali rahimahullah that in the end of his life he repented as well. And Allah knows best. And he was from the mutakallimin. So we see now that there is an obligatory type of knowledge. What type of that knowledge? What knowledge is that? The knowledge that a person's creed will be correct by way of. So this is an obligation to learn Tawheed. It's an obligation to have the knowledge of Allah Azza wa Jalla and His Tawheed, and to know Him by His names and His attributes and His Lordship and His Rububiyyah, and to know Him by His signs and His creation and His signs and His legislation. To know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly, to have knowledge of this affair, of the tawheed of Allah upon clarity and insight, to have no doubt about that. And likewise to have knowledge of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and that he is the messenger of Allah, and what he was upon was truth. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, have knowledge of the religion of Islam and that which is pleasing to Allah from the proper creed and the proper belief, and likewise knowledge of how to rectify the worship and to perform the actions of worship properly, especially the obligations. Whether a believer, he should be shy to stand before Allah and perform the obligations that are upon him upon ignorance. He should be shy to perform obligations, the greatest actions, the most beloved actions to Allah, to perform them upon ignorance, to perform them upon whims, upon desires, upon customs, without having any clarification from the Quran or from the Sunnah or the way of the Sahaba. Radiallahu anhum. A believer should be shy from that. So this is obligatory knowledge. Likewise, the knowledge of how to make his contracts good, and marriage and divorce, and likewise in buying and trading and his businesses, that which is considered correct, and the knowledge that he is going to be in need of whenever he's going to go about through his life. When he's going to go about through his life. It has been narrated by Imam Malik rahimahullah ta'ala that he says it was said to him, مَا تَقُولُ فِي طَالِبِ الْعِلْمِ. Imam Malik, it was said to him, what do you say about seeking knowledge? So he says, قَالَ حَسَنٌ جَمِيلٌ. He said, this is something nice and very good. He says, وَلَكِنْ أُنظُرْ الَّذِي يَلْزَمُكَ مِنْ حِينِ تُصْبِحُ إِلَى حِينِ تُمْسِي فَالْزَمْهُ. He said, he was asked about seeking knowledge. What do you think about that? He said, this is nice and very good. But you need to look at that which is obligatory upon you from the time you wake up until the time you go to sleep. And this is what you hold fast to. And this is what you hold fast to. You need to learning that. This is where you start. And this is also a benefit from learning the different types of knowledge and the categories of these affairs. To learn what is obligatory from that knowledge first and foremost, and show preference to that. And to not find oneself studying the knowledge that's not obligatory while he is ignorant of the knowledge that's obligatory. This is from the signs, the people of knowledge, they mentioned that a person is following his desires while seeking knowledge. A person, he can follow his desires while seeking knowledge. And from the sign of that, أنه يطلب ما أسرع إليه هواه. أنه يطلب ما أسرع إليه هواه. This is what Al-Ajuri, he mentioned, rahimahullah, and Akhlaq al-Ulama. That a person, the sign that he's following his desires, that it's easy for him to seek the knowledge of that which is the first thing that comes to his desires and whims. What comes to his desires and whims, this knowledge here is easy for him. You'll find it's easy for him to memorize, it's easy for him to go over, it's easy for him to review because it comes to his heart, because he likes it. And he also mentioned that the reason also for that is because if he learns it and that people find out, he'll be praised for that. He'll be praised for that. As for the knowledge that is obligatory, if you learn that, the details of the creed and the belief, and likewise the details of the conditions of wudu and salah, and the pillars of salah, and the obligations of salah, and the sunan of salah, this knowledge can become heavy, but it takes precedence. And the fact that a person, he would neglect this and leave this and then jump to some other knowledge, and that is also beneficial, but it's not in this order. It's not in this order. This is a sign he's following his desires. Because the whole reason to set out in seeking knowledge is to seek the knowledge of that which will bring one close to Allah. وَمَا تَقَرَّبَ إِلَيَّ عَبْدِي بِشَيْءٍ أَحَبَّ إِلَيَّ مِمَّا فَرَضْتُ عَلَيْهِ. And my slave has never sought nearness to me with anything more beloved to me except that I have made it obligatory. So the obligations, they come first, and the obligatory knowledge, it comes first. Ibn Hajar rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentioned مَنْ شَغَلَهُ الْفَرْضُ عَنِ النَّفْرِ فَهُوَ مَعْذُورٌ. The one who is preoccupied with an obligation and he left off the non-obligatory affair, then he's excused. وَمَنْ شَغَلَهُ النَّفْلُ عَنِ الْفَرْضِ فَهُوَ مَغْرُورٌ. And the person who is preoccupied with a non-obligatory action, leaving off the obligation, then he's been deceived. He's been deceived. So the fact that a person came on the straight path to seek knowledge is a good sign. But even then, on that path, the shaitan is more diligent to mislead a person, to deter a person, to cause him to not benefit in the best manner which is required. And from that is trying to jump steps. And from that is trying to learn that which is not obligatory or before that which is obligatory, or to learn that which is important before that which is most important. So in seeking knowledge, there is that which is most important, and then there is that which is important. So what takes preference is that which is most important. And that is the obligatory knowledge here that he's clarifying in this manner, which could be summarized in the statement of Imam Malik rahimahullah, that which you need to do in your day and your night. And every one of us might be different. That which I do from the time I wake and the time I go to bed might be different from what you do from the time you wake and from the time you go to bed. So the knowledge that I may have, that may be obligatory for me to learn, may be slightly different from what's obligatory for you to learn. There are actions and deeds that we all share in for the fact that we're believers, but there are other actions that maybe we're different in. Maybe you go out into the world and you do business in this particular aspect. Maybe I do business in another aspect. It will not be obligatory for me to learn that aspect because I'm not involved in that. But it will be obligatory for you to learn that aspect because you are involved in that. You're involved in that. So the point is, to what is obligatory now is to learn what is incumbent upon you to perform in order to establish your religion, to be upon the straight path, applying the obligations and avoiding the prohibitions from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed. This is the summarization of that. Ibn Mubarak rahimahullah ta'ala, he died in the year 181. He says, إِذَا لَمْ يَكُنْ عِنْدَ الرَّجُلِ مَالٌ فَلَيْسَ عَلَيْهِ وَاجِبًا أَنْ يَتَعَلَّمَ الزَّكَاةِ. If a man, he does not have any money, it's not obligatory for him to learn zakat. It's not obligatory for him to learn to learn zakat. He says, فَإِذَا كَانَ عِنْدَهُ مِيَّةَ دِرْهَمْ وَجَبَ أَنْ يَتَعَلَّمَ كَيْفَ يُخْرِجُ أو يضع وسائر الأعمال على ذلك أو على هذا. He said, as for if his money reaches 200 dirham, meaning he reached the nisab. As for if his wealth reaches the nisab, now it's obligatory for him to learn how to give the zakat and the proper places to put it, and the avenues of where it will be accepted. Learning how to give the zakat and how much to give and where it should be given. He says, وَسَائِرَ الْأَعْمَالِ عَلَى هَذَا. And the rest of the actions, they're like this. So maybe an action is not obligatory upon somebody because he's not going to be involved in that. But if he's going to get involved in that, now that learning that knowledge will become obligatory upon him. So the person who does not have money, learning the details of zakat is not obligatory upon him. But the one who has money, or if that one he didn't have money, now he came into money, now it's an obligation for him to learn those rulings. Meaning, barakallahu fikum, if he did not learn those rulings, he's sinning in that. And then what comes from that, from negligence in performing the actions that are obligatory upon him, based upon that knowledge. And he can't apply it, because he didn't get the knowledge in the first place. He's held accountable for that too. And in the fact he didn't give the zakat, for example, when he's supposed to, he's held accountable for that. And the fact that he neglected learning that obligation when it's obligatory upon him, he's held accountable for that. That's the benefit that we learn from this affair here, that this knowledge is an obligation. There's no excuse for somebody to not learn it. So there's no excuse for somebody to not learn it, especially in these days when knowledge is widespread and is very easy to obtain. Very easy to obtain. So now he says, included in that is the knowledge of the heart, and this is very important likewise, to know the diseases of the heart and how to cure them and to purify them. This is from the obligations. It's obligatory to know about these affairs and the details of these affairs. As for the definition of them, as Al-Ghazali mentioned, Wallahu A'lam, Shaykh Uthaymin, he didn't agree with that part, rahimahullah. But no doubt to learn the means of these sins, how the heart becomes corrupted, the avenues of corruption, from the eyes and what one looks at, from the ears and what one listens to, from the belly and what one eats and puts in his stomach, and the likes like this, from halal and haram. And maybe the food itself is halal, like for example a piece of chicken, but the way that he earned it, he obtained it, is not halal. The way that he earned it and obtained it is not halal. Maybe he has a nice beautiful thobe. It's made from halal, but the way that he purchased it and he got the money to buy it, it's haram. It's haram. All of these affairs right here, they will corrupt the heart. All of these affairs right here, these are the means to corrupt the heart. And likewise to learn the cure for that, and to learn the treatment for that, and to how to deal with that. A person has to learn these affairs. And this is also from those obligations. He says, Al-Qism al-Thani, Fard al-Kifaya. The second portion, Fard al-Kifaya. And we mentioned before that this is the one that's not obligatory upon everybody. If some of the believers, they establish it, then the sin falls off the rest of them. وَيُقَالُ لَهُ الْحَاجِي. This one is called likewise al-Haji. Wallahu A'lam, this is also from the word of, or the terminology of Al-Qasimi rahimahullah. And it's also mentioned that it's the needed knowledge. And it's not daruri. Ad-darura is more severe than al-Hajj. Ad-darura is a necessity you cannot live without. The people of knowledge, they mentioned something that's called darura. It means that if yakhsha al-maut or faqdi ba'di a'dha'ihi. This is called darura. If he's in a situation called darura, meaning he's afraid that he's going to die or lose a body part. Now this is called, now he's in darura. Like this. But as for the hajj, it's lesser than that. That maybe he's in a hardship or a difficulty, but he's not going to lose his life, or he's not going to lose one of his body parts. But it's something that definitely he's in need of. So this is the difference between the two, in the language of the fuqaha. So he says, وَيُقَالُ لَهُ الْحَاجِ هو دارس ما لا بد للناس منه في إقامة دينهم كحفظ القرآن والأحاديث وعلومهما والأصول والفقه والنحو واللغة ومعرفة رواة الحديث والإجماع والخلاف. So he says this, the second type of knowledge is called فرض الكفاية. Again, هو ما قام به بعض المسلمين سقط الإثم عن الباقين. That if some of the believers, they establish this type of knowledge, then the sin falls off the rest of them. The ummah in entirety is not called to learn this knowledge. And contrary to Tawheed, every Muslim must learn about Tawheed. That's Fard Ain. The Salat, how to perform Salat. Every Muslim who reaches the age of puberty, has sanity, is required to learn a Salat. But this knowledge here, not every Muslim is required to learn it, but some of them are. Somebody from the ummah has to establish this right, has to fulfill this obligation. If he does that, or if they do that, then the sin falls off the rest of them. He said, and this is what the people must have in order for their religion to be established. This is the type of knowledge that the Muslims, they must have in general for their religion to be established, like the memorization of the Quran. It's not an obligation for every one of us to memorize the entire Quran, but somebody has to, and teach that likewise. It's not an obligation for every one of us to teach the Quran, but somebody has to. Somebody has to learn that knowledge and be able and qualified to do that in the ummah, in every vicinity, likewise, in every jariyah, in every society or community. There has to be somebody who establishes the affairs for the believers. If not, they're deficient. They're falling into sin in this manner. Especially, it's dangerous in America. Many of the Muslims, they are not establishing these furud kifaya in their masajid and their lands. They build masajid, they have no one to teach there. They have no one to lead the prayer there. And they have lots of fitna and trials there because of that. Wallahu musta'an. So this is from that. Likewise, narrations. Learning the hadith, and learning the sciences of hadith, and learning the fundamentals of fiqh, and learning fiqh and the details of that. Learning the details of Arabic grammar. learning the details of the Arabic language and the sciences of the Arabic language, like sarf, for example, or balagha, learning about the narrators of hadith, learning about the consensus, where the scholars have a consensus with regards to Islamic rulings and jurisprudence, and likewise the differences of opinion. This is not obligatory for all Muslims to learn, but some of the Muslims, they have to establish this. And this is also from the very beneficial knowledge, especially, for example, with the ijma' and the khilaf. Even some of the people of knowledge, they mentioned, "Man lam yarif al-khilaf lam yashum rahat al-fiqh." The one who did not learn, the differences of opinions of the scholars, he didn't even smell the scent of fiqh. He doesn't even smell the scent of fiqh. And he didn't even smell the scent of understanding in the religion and jurisprudence until he understand the different of opinion of the scholars, and meaning of the four imams and the great scholars of fiqh, and of the great scholars of hadith, and not to mention of today, but I mean where the foundations of the rulings come from and are derived from the Quran and from the Sunnah, and then from the fuqaha of the previous generations of the Salaf as-Salih, to know where they agreed upon and know where they differed. This is from the greatest means of having a good understanding of the religion. This type of knowledge, though, is not obligatory upon everyone. He says, وَمِنْهُ مَا يَحْتَاجُ إِلَيْهِ فِي قِوَامِ أَمْرِ الدُّنْيَا كَالطِّبِّ وَالْحِسَابِ وَالْهَنْدَسَةِ. And likewise from this knowledge as well, which is considered fard al-kifaya. Fard al-kifaya is that which مما يحتاج إليه من قوام أمر الدنيا كالطب والحساب والهندسة. Likewise, that which is needed from establishing the worldly life, from medicine and from mathematics and from engineering and the likes like this. And also this sciences here are considered fard kifaya. Somebody from the Muslims, they have to learn the science of medicine in order to benefit the Muslims. Someone from the Muslims have to learn the science of engineering. And whenever the scholars, they talk about this, and this is in reference to a Muslim society. We have many bad understandings these days, and many Muslims, they'll go to think they're going to learn fard kifaya, and they're going to learn medicine for the sake of Allah, and then they're going to help the disbelievers, and not even help the believers, except for very rarely, 1 or 2 times a year, maybe a Muslim will find his way there. But in comparison to the rest of the time, no, he's there in America helping the disbelievers, not the Muslims. So he's not fulfilling fard kifaya. This person here is getting his worldly life. Somebody who learned about engineering and the likes, it's allowed for him to do that. It's allowed for him to learn engineering. But to learn engineering to build buildings in America, this is not going to be considered he's establishing fard kifaya, and that he has a beautiful intention, that he's learning the science for the sake of Allah to help mankind. La, he's learning this knowledge now, and he's helping the enemies of Allah and the enemies of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So in order to have that beautiful intention, it has to be to help the Muslims, to help the believers. So to come and to learn knowledge of medicine or of engineering or these other beneficial worldly knowledges of agriculture and the likes like this, and take it back home to the Muslim lands and benefit the Muslims there, then no doubt this is a beautiful intention. And this person, he will be establishing fard kifaya in that manner. As for the one who learns for the worldly life, then it's permissible for him, and Allah knows best. But he would not be considered establishing this great right. So we should not be confused about that. ومنه تعلم الصنائع التي هي سبب قيام مصالح الدنيا كالزراعة ونحوها. Likewise, learning the industry and the different trades. Also, this is an obligation. From the affairs that will rectify the worldly life, like agriculture, learning roads, learning how to build roads, learning how to build to dig wells. All of these affairs, the people of knowledge, they spoke about them. Learning how to build bridges. They mentioned the likes of this. And the Manzuma, Al-Adab al-Shar'iyya that we spoke about yesterday, they mentioned specific, building bridges, digging wells, and farming, and agriculture, and the likes like this. This is all from al-furud al-kifaya. That some of the Muslims must establish it for the benefit of the Muslim society. They must learn these affairs. They must learn also about qada and about even in our days, like traffic and the likes like this. How to learn this affair to keep the community flowing properly. Traffic lights and the likes like this, and these different issues from the worldly life. This knowledge is considered fard kifaya. The one who had a beautiful intention to learn that, in order to help the believers and the Muslims, he's considered fulfilling that. And Allah knows best. Al-Qism al-Thalith, al-Nafal. The third type of knowledge is al-Nafal. Al-Nafal. The people of knowledge, I mentioned al-Nafal huwa ma zada ala al-fard. That which is after the obligation, meaning it's not obligatory. it's not obligatory. This knowledge here is not obligatory. Not any for every individual, and not for some of the people in the manner like this. He said, ويقال له التحسيني. التحسيني يعني من التجميل والتحسين والتزيين. Meaning this is from the beautification or the completion. He says, وهو كالتبحر في أصول الأدلة والإمعان فيما وراء القدر الذي يحصل به فرض الكفاية والتوسع في فنون الأدب والمعقول. He said, for example, this type of knowledge that is not obligatory in any one of those aspects that have preceded, to think in detail about the evidence, which is an amount that is beyond the fard kifaya, and to go into great detail in the issues of al-adab and al-ma'qul and intelligence and the likes like this. Meaning that for example, in learning the Arabic language, there's a portion that's obligatory upon that's fard kifaya, to learn the Arabic language. But to go into great detail in that and learn all about the poetry and the different the different issues like this and the details of adab and literature, that would be considered extra, not obligatory, not on the ayn and not on the kifaya, and not on the ayn and not on the kifaya. To go deeper into that affair, and the likes like this, and Allah knows best. Again, the knowledge of this worldly life, and seeking that knowledge, if it's accompanied with a beautiful intention of benefiting Islam and helping and aiding the Muslims, then no doubt the person who has this intention and he sought that knowledge and he fulfilled that obligation, he'll have a great reward with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there's a benefit here, and we close on that, and that is that the people of knowledge, they mention that by way of the niyyah, a person, he can reach high levels and high rates and high status. And that is knowing the intention. And the point now is that a person is able to turn something that is generally considered mubah. It's generally considered mubah. It's permissible. There's no reward in it. He can turn that with a beautiful intention into an action of worship. For example, to learn agriculture. It's permissible. It's mubah. It's not like somebody who's going to get a reward for that in the origin. Or to learn to be a technician, computer technician, for example, or to learn one of these different sciences or occupations. It's allowed for a person, so in the limits of Islam. It's not encouraged, it's not saying he's going to get a reward for that. No. But the one who does this in order to benefit the believers, now with this intention to benefit the believers, now he will have a reward for that. And to remember this, if you're to use this in one's life. For example, eating, you don't get a reward for that. But if you remember Allah when you're eating, and you eat with your right hand, and you say the name of Allah, and you show thanks, and you praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you eat to strengthen yourself, to continue being obedient and fulfilling the rights of Allah Azza wa Jalla, now you have a reward. Sleeping, you don't have a reward for that. But if you follow the sunnah when sleeping, and you make wudu before you go to sleep, for example, you sleep on tahara, and then you make the adhkar, and you remember Allah before sleeping, and you follow the way of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you lay on your right side, you make the adhkar in this manner, and you have the intention to get up for fajr. You have the intention to get up for the night prayer, for example. You have the intention to sleep, to get rest, so you can get up in the morning and pray and establish those obligations. Now your sleeping became an action of worship. And like this for the rest of the affairs. Hatta the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned, even in the private of one of you have ajr. Even if you put it in the right place. By fulfilling the right of the spouse and keeping the chaste and the likes like this. And to benefit from that, you enjoy that. But to have the intention to remember Allah and to say the name of Allah before that happens, and to do that to stay safe from zina and from indecency, and to keep the spouse safe. Likewise, this is now turning into a great reward. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is Al-Kareem, the most generous subhanahu wa ta'ala. هذا وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.